Okay, so welcome, my chess friends, to the second part of our film dedicated to double pawns. Now, in the first film, we've explained that, broadly speaking, having double pawns could prove to be a disadvantage because they cannot defend one another, and you gotta keep pieces to keep them safe. Now, there are also exceptions to almost any rule, and in some situations, you're actually required to do have double pawns because it's more beneficial to your attack. Now let's contemplate for a sec this the current position on the chessboard right now. So you're having blacks playing against the whites here. Okay, opposite side castling. Opposite side castling, mind you guys. Now, black king is nice and safe here. White king is here for the time being, relatively safe. It's a relative safety. There is no absolute safety in chess as in life. Okay, now you would say, well, should I take this pawn back with the queen to maintain my pawn structure and nice pawn islands? We just keep playing chess. You could, but I think you would be missing a huge opportunity if you were to take this pawn back with the queen. Because if you actually capture with the g7 to f6, there are a couple of good things happening for yourselves. You've got a bishop aiming at this knight and is defended by the pawn, and obviously if they take back, the king would be terribly exposed on the g file. And because we've spoken about the g file, this is a semi-open file, and you can take very well advantage by placing one of your rooks here and combine with the bishop. This is quite problematic for your opponent. So in this particular situation here, having double pawns, it is actually beneficial for you attacking your opponent's king. So you just need to identify the priority. Okay, so now we're going to look through some other exercises to conclude very nicely. So queen moved over to e2 to defend the knight. Okay, so if you take queen takes back, that's what I planned, but you just increase the attack very nicely with rook h2 g8, and potentially you might be able to double the pawns, and if they push the g3, they are weakening terribly then the light squares. So we could say black had created, due to the double pawns on the f file, had created semi-open file attack from the rook, and it's a nice counterattack ideas looming now over the board. The next type of exercise, let's have a look at this one. Beautiful, beautiful situation here. And again, white might be tempted to say, I'm gonna take now this guy using my queen, right? I mean, I want to take with the queen. Again, I'm preserving the pawn structure. Pawns are connected. Everything's fine and cool. There is one little detail here. So given the fact, hopefully you're not playing a bullet having this position here and you got to take an informed decision in a matter of seconds. I hope you guys play more rapids than bullets, especially if you're students now and trying to learn the mysteries of this beautiful game. Now, rather than taking with the queen, which would allow the black knight to jump on d4, having a tremendously powerful outpost, and then you have to keep an eye on this guy. You got to be careful about c2 and e2. So rather than taking with the queen, why not taking with the pawn? What is the difference actually? What does that mean? You completely deny black's knight outpost here or here for that matter. So they cannot infiltrate this very, very dangerous knight. So this is an incredibly important move that you can actually play by taking back with the f pawn, having indeed double pawns on the e file, but this proves to be incredibly efficient. Now you can double up the rooks you wanted to do this anyway, but definitely not allowing this black knight incursions in your half territory it's totally fabulous. Now we're going to have maybe a bit of a complex situation here in which it is one more time proven to you guys how important it is to having open or semi-open file, like in our position here. Strong attack coming from those two bishops, combined with the queen presence on the h file. A very powerful attack is going to happen now, and black's defenses are going to collapse here. You're going to start with a sacrifice, and then you're going to play another sacrifice. We're just going to go through this fairly quickly. I don't want to keep you like 1 hour here. So rook takes and rook captures. Now you take with the queen with a check. So this is check here, right? And they can't block, because if the rook blocks, you're going to take back, and you got a checkmate. So they can't do that. Therefore, they've got to move. Right, and now you're going to play another slightly counterintuitive move, but incredibly strong move, and there's nothing your opponent can do to stop it. You're going to have another devastating check here. Obviously, they can't take because the rook is pinned by the white rook. They can't take your rook because the king is in check. Priorities, priorities. So unfortunately, they have to play f7. And now, if I give you guys a couple of seconds, you will actually notice there is another devastating check coming over to f6. Check. And now you're coming another one here. And now, even if they block with the queen, you're going to capture. And at the end of it all, you're going to come up with more material than your opponent. So you're doing absolutely great here. Two bishops and a rook versus a rook and a knight. You should be able to win. You got a massive passer here. Got another passer here. And this guy is hanging, and I don't even know what to tell you. There are so many good moves for white, so many good ideas, not so many good ideas for black at this current moment of the game. But let's go with our double pawns ideas. So you might say, okay, what am I doing? Should I take with the queen here? You could. But wouldn't that be better if you make it a habit to actually think, especially when it's opposite side castling? What if I take actually with the g pawn so I can move one of my rook over to the g file, aiming directly at my opponent's king? So why not just taking with this guy here? And then you can get both rooks watching intently, attacking on g and h simultaneously. Incredibly strong ideas, because the f3 pawn would be pinned. Okay, just to make it very clear for you guys. And another situation here in which having double pawns is actually beneficial for you. So there are this kind of situations here. Okay, so the bishop took. You may say, okay, should I take with the rook now? But sometimes it's good for you to identify, to actually recognize it's important to take with a pawn. Why? You mustn't allow your opponent you mustn't allow them the outpost, especially for those super dangerous pesky knights. So if this knight makes it here, you don't even have a bishop to challenge them. You don't have a dark square bishop to challenge that knight. And I don't think you're on a second exchange. So sometimes you need to take for prophylactic reasons, for just staving off their attack. It's important to having this c3 pawn here because the outpost would be completely paralyzing and very annoying for you to be fighting against. So you just need to recognize, to understand the priorities here. So let's have a look at another position. Let's give it a few seconds, guys. What do you think we should be playing here? So first thing first, target is here, right? There is a pawn in front of them. Cool. We're having a battery double attack. They do attack twice. Might we bring a third attacker on that identified weakness? Because the weakness here, of course, you always need to make it a habit. Identify your opponent's weaknesses. Go and attack them. So can you perhaps bring a third attacker? And yes, there is a rook here on f1. You move it over to g, and suddenly you've got another attacker here. Devastating move. This is a semi-open file, very powerful attack, looking very good for white. Again, it doesn't mean, so don't make the mistake thinking that if you're getting a winning position, a better attacking position, the victory is guaranteed. In chess, victory is never guaranteed unless the other guy actually resigns or you checkmate their king. Okay, so be very focused until the very end of the game. When they resign or you checkmate, then you can sort of like celebrate, of course, within the chess etiquette without just boasting too much because you might be losing the next game. Okay, so always be modest in your celebrations, guys. Okay, current position now here. There is a knight on f6 aiming at this pawn, and of course they would be attacking the queen, they would be attacking this guy here. There's just something you need to think about. But also this guy, if it didn't exist, would allow white to dream of a nice attacking formation here, battery here, formed of bishop on b3 and rook on f1. So the f7 square is the infamous bad square in chess, and f2 also for white. Let me have a sip of coffee now. More fuel to the brain, I'd say. Okay, so if we go with the g5 move now, we will be pushing this knight to move away, and they will have to move away, and they got to be very careful about where they go because they might be in trouble now. So if they go, for instance, here, let's see, what can we do at that stage? Might we perhaps being able to playing something like this and attack them and defending this guy? That might be a possibility. But nevertheless, having pushed the pawn on g5, we are kicking this guy away, and that opens up the rook, and it looks indeed very good for ourselves here, my chess friends. So let's go with another scenario here. Now, this knight, do you know what this white knight wants to do? The white knight on e3 wants to jump over to d5, targeting your black queen, attacking the e7 bishop. This is serious, and you don't have a pawn to stop them. You don't have a pawn here on e7, so you could say I'm moving on e6, I'm stopping it. You don't. Okay, so you got to do something urgently now. You cannot allow this white knight outpost on d5. Very dangerous. So how can you stop this from happening? Well, luckily you can resort to a fabulous move now that is forcing white to respond. You're going to play queen to c6. What does that do? Checks the king and hits the white queen. So they can't ignore the move. They can't move the king away because obviously you would have taken the queen. So the queen has to take your guy, and now you're going to take back with the pawn. And when you take back, you actually solve the problem with the white knight outpost. The white knight can't make it on d5 because you're going to take it straight away. So everything is more playable. Now you've denied the outpost. Potentially you might be having these ideas, potentially this, and so forth. So the situations are always complex. You haven't won just yet, but you've achieved one sort of blocking your opponent activation of the knight, especially if you can do not deny them the you need to refuse to decline for them those very, very dangerous outposts. Shall we go for another one, guys? I think we just stop it now here because it just takes too long. By the way, guys, follow me on Twitch as well, so we can just do live some friendly games, maybe some games analysis together, and just discussing friendly topics when we see one another virtually, guys. So thank you very much. Enjoy the remainder of the day, people, and we'll see you soon.